We are live. Welcome to GTFO, our Friday Facebook live session and podcast. So today you've got me, Rachel, and Simon Dalley, and we are going to talk to you about evergreen content. How exciting. Isn't that exciting, Simon Dalley?
It's exciting. It's one of those
Yeah.
things that I've been banging on about for so long. I can't remember. So it's always nice
Yeah.
to talk about everything stuff.
It's almost like it's an evergreen subject for you, isn't it?
I
Ba-dum-bum.
would say it is an evergreen subject. Yeah.
So we are here today with 5 top tips to help you get your evergreen content correct or help to make it a little bit better. But first of all, Simon Dalley, what's your name and where do you come from?
I'm Simon Dalley. I am from the United Kingdom in the Northern Hemisphere, and I currently live in Bacup, originally from Exton, which is a small village. Well, it's about a large village, really, outside Chorley. Quite interesting actually. Been there. Lots of generations of my family have come from that area as well. But I don't live there anymore. Many 8 years ago or so, moved from there, and now I'm here.
You are there. Where specifically are
Also,
you? Because it's very echoey today. So where are you joining us from?
so I am in a kitchen
Oh,
in the AVD centre in Bacup.
oh, exciting.
Um, yes, because I've just had to do some work here and have a meeting here. So I thought I'd double the things up, but
Yes.
unfortunately, the office is too far away from the Wi-Fi router, and my phone doesn't get signal in the building for some reason.
I mean, all of these things are fascinating, but thank you for filling us
Well,
in.
no, well,
Um,
to be honest, because there's only two of us, I thought I'd pad a bit.
Pad a bit, right? Well, we don't need to because we've got lots to talk about. Simon Daly, has anything interesting happened to you this week?
I started that, so I think I've just about become a school governor. That's
Yes.
an interesting one at our little boys' school. Just done that. Lots of things have happened this week. I'm just trying to think what though.
Yes.
Seems
Well,
like
I mean, I did ask for something exciting, but never mind.
do you know what? It's just been such a busy, hectic week. I've
Yeah.
still got emails from Tuesday that I've not answered yet. I've not even looked at yet.
Well, it's also it's a 4-day week, isn't it? That always makes a difference because we're
Mm.
recording this on the Friday after the Easter weekend. Well, my name is Rachel Weinhold. I am from Grow Traffic, also living in Bacup. It is a lovely place. And my exciting thing for the week is that I've got septicemia in my finger. Woohoo! That's exciting, isn't it?
You've not got septicemia. You've got a little infection in your finger.
I've got septicemia in my finger.
Oh, okay.
Okay, fine. Right. Well, thank you for that. Let's just dismiss everything that never
Not
mind.
dismissing
Um,
you are.
yeah, whatever. Right, anyway, let's move on. Let's move on then. So to evergreen content. Well, first of all, what on earth do we mean when we say evergreen content? What is evergreen content?
We're talking about content that's always relevant to an audience. So it's content that's not topical. It's not news content. It's content that isn't related to maybe a period during the year, such as Christmas or Easter, or we just had Easter, or maybe the seasons. That shouldn't. It's not seasonal content. It's not branded content. It's not content that has a short lifespan. It's content that's always going to be relevant whenever somebody who searches for a certain kind and primarily use evergreen content as inbound content, which means that we're looking to drag people from a search engine onto a website. So it's when somebody goes from a search engine to a website, it should be relevant to them at that point, and it should be relevant throughout the year.
Yeah, so I mean that was my second question actually, is sort of why do we use evergreen content? But yeah, evergreen content is it's that piece of content that's going to sit on your website potentially for years, isn't it? And should remain relevant at whatever point somebody is going to land on your website. So as you say, it's not like a seasonal post, it's not a post related to a calendar or a short-lived thing such as a special offer or a an announcement of a new product or whatever. It's much more of that sort of foundational content that serves a specific purpose on your website. So what is that purpose? You've already said, we use it to drive traffic, but why should people be worrying about evergreen content? And also, what's the difference when we talk about evergreen content? Is that a blog page? Sorry, is that a website page? Is it a downloadable PDF? Is it a blog post? What specifically is it? How are people supposed to be using it?
I mean, evergreen content could be any number of type of pieces of content. The key thing is that it's always relevant. It always kind of does the job that it was set out to do, wherever it sits. Whenever somebody lands on it, or whenever somebody finds that piece of content. It could be a video, it could be a blog post, it could be a service page, even in some respects. As long as it fulfills the requirement of the searcher and it doesn't go out of date, then it's an evergreen piece.
Yeah. So it
But
could, go on.
No, I was going to say, but from the way that we primarily think about it, is we tend to think about it as largely blog posts, because Google still reads a lot of text and is still, that's still primary a way of building up the kind of complexity and relevance of your website. So primarily we think of them as blog posts. It might have an image on it, it might have a video on it that helps do the same thing. But we're trying to suck people onto the website at a relevant point in the buyer journey. That's what we're trying to do, in order to funnel them further. Yeah. Oh man, I'm jumping ahead.
Yeah, you're jumping ahead. You're jumping ahead as per usual. We are going to come on to that. But yeah, I mean, there have been sort of studies done, and you can go and Google them. What's the purpose of evergreen content, or what benefit does evergreen content have? Quite a few people like SEMrush, Search Engine Journal, what have you, have done studies into how does evergreen content benefit a website as opposed to those other types that we just mentioned. And the beauty of it is because it is answering sort of key questions, or it sits there for a long time, and we will come on to discuss all this in a bit more detail. Because it's on your website for a long time, it has a sort of what's the word? It has like a cumulative effect of gathering traffic. So yeah, it sits there for a long time. It tends to get a lot more traffic because it's answering those fundamental questions or addressing the sort of core thing that you do. It tends to be the content that lots of other posts are also linked back to. So it kind of becomes your pillar content, doesn't it? It's like the foundational content that everything else is built from, and therefore it converts better. It gets good engagement. It gets good traffic. So from an SEO point of view, it is a key function of your or a key element of your content marketing strategy, isn't it? Or it should be.
Yeah, I mean grow traffic is called grow traffic, isn't it? And that's what we aim to do, grow traffic to people's websites. And one of the primary ways that we do it is by creating content on people's websites that is constantly soaks up traffic. And quite often, somebody will say, well, you've written a blog post or you've created a piece of content and it's had 50 views or 200 views in the first month that it was out. Has that been a success? And we have to say, the success of that post isn't necessarily what happens in that first month, but it's measured in years.
Yes.
And that's the benefit, and it's a different way of thinking about marketing than a lot of marketing departments and maybe managing directors, etc. think about, because it's a long-term marketing strategy. Yeah. It's a very long-term. You've got to be thinking in years, really, when you think about this type of content.
Yeah.
Am I
exactly.
still jumping
Perfect.
ahead? Sorry.
No. Well, no. That's all good. But we're gonna crack on to our top 5 tips because time is marching on. Ding, ding, ding. So 5 top tips to help you create or improve your evergreen content. Tip number 1: plan your evergreen content around your other types of content. So what we mean by this is, pretty much as we've just said, your evergreen content is a key component of your overall content marketing strategy. So you cannot simply rely on evergreen content, but it also, you can't leave it out and just focus on newsjacking pieces or whatever. So you have to really think about your evergreen content in terms of what is your overall strategy, what other types of blogs are you writing, and balance that out. So Dalley, what would be your sort of recommended? I mean, is there a recommended amount where you say like evergreen content should be a third of your content strategy, whereas others should be more, instant, transient, accessible, whatever it might
No,
be?
it's gonna depend on your strategy. I actually kind of slightly disagree with what you said just then. What about newsjacking? Some businesses do very well by the majority of their content marketing strategy being newsjacking oriented. It all, as
So,
with
so do
all
you mean
kinds of marketing,
are you
it's
saying
going to
that some
depend.
businesses don't need to do evergreen content at all?
Some businesses might not. No, it might not be
And
relevant to all
how will they
businesses.
know?
Um, it comes into having a deep understanding of your customer, what your customer wants, what they
Okay,
require,
we're gonna come
um,
on to that then.
and your competitors. Yeah, sorry, I'll jump ahead again. There we go.
But I mean, for me, my perspective would be, I think every website, if SEO is if they want to grow and they want to get more traffic, as opposed to just being, for example, a business card or a brochure website or whatever that simply provides the contact details, you're going to need some form of evergreen content, aren't you, on there that explains sort of fundamentally what your product services are, how they work, all the rest of it. So, I mean, I would argue that most businesses are going to need to think about evergreen content in some way.
Yeah, I think there's an argument to say that most businesses could use evergreen content. Um, the question whether most businesses should always use evergreen content is a slightly different one. And then if you're talking about what percentage you should split that up, well, it depends on your marketing strategy
Mm.
and your
So, I mean,
approach.
what do we use for grow traffic, for example?
Primarily, almost 100% content marketing. We, sorry, almost 100% is evergreen content. In terms of the actual content that we create and add to the website, it works like that. In fact, if you kind of think about kind of pushing that out a bit further to the type of content that we create on other platforms away from Grow Traffic, such as social media, and then the PR pieces that we do, they are very brand led. So off the website, we do very brand led pieces. On the website, the majority of what we do is in is evergreen, inbound evergreen. We do have some kind of thought leadership pieces as well, though, that each of us occasionally does, but those pieces
So,
are fewer and far between than they ever used to be, put it that way.
I mean, we do quite a lot of newsjacking, don't we? But just give me a sort of example, like
Well,
for
no,
people that
actually,
just
well,
just one sec. Just you're using quite marketing terms here of brand focused and evergreen and all the rest of it. But just give me a really specific example of what some titles might be. Like, what is it? What would a blog post be that we would write on our website that's evergreen versus, for example, a newsjacking or a calendar focus, an event focused
okay.
post?
So an evergreen piece of content for us might be how to choose an SEO agency.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got a piece of content that's dedicated to explaining to the potential visitor how to find, how to choose them, how to differentiate between them, and that will always be relevant, or should always be relevant. You might need to update it every few years, but you know, by and large, it will always be a relevant piece of content. you then might have a newsjacking piece. So we're in the SEO industry, so we might have a piece of content that talks about the latest update from Google, or a small change that Google's put out, that's only really relevant to people in the industry, or it's only relevant to business owners who are interested in that kind of side of things. And it's only relevant maybe for a week because it's a flash in the pan. News articles are a flash in the pan. And often they have higher traffic volumes in a short period of time because it's topically relevant, people are interested in it. But they don't have the longevity. They often drop off within a week or two. And then you'll have kind of branded pieces as well, which branded pieces would be more like traditional PR, more like what most people think about as blog posts. So this is like some information about the business where the company's been out of team day, and we've written it up as a little news article type thing.
So
and then on top
just
of that,
sorry, go on quickly.
no, and then the other side of it is the thought leadership pieces, where you've either put your opinion about something out there, or you've done some research and you're sharing that research. So that's different again.
Yeah, just thinking about Katie and Liz have both said hello, that they are or were watching, and just thinking about their businesses. So I know Katie, they have a jewelry business, Guy Clean Jewelry. An evergreen piece of content for them would be something like, how do I choose the right ring size, or how do I get my rings resized, or something like that. Always going to be relevant to their audience. Whereas a more transient piece of content might be, good rings to buy for Mother's Day, or best Christmas presents, or whatever. In the case of Liz, an evergreen piece of content is going to be something like, how do I choose a photographer, or how do I ensure I've got good lighting for my photographs. Whereas a more transient piece of content might be, we've just been at this expo, this is what we did. So it's quite, I just want to define it, because I think sometimes we get bogged down in terms, don't we?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing to say about the examples that you just gave, you're absolutely right with Liz's piece about the expo, but thinking about the pieces for Katie for Galway Queen Jewelry, you said one about Christmas, one about Easter. Yeah, they're not evergreen content because they're relevant all year round. However, they're still seasonal content, so they are relevant. They're relevant every year, so they have a bit more longevity about them. In a different way.
Unless those products still aren't then in stock. But yes, yeah, it depends how you write them, doesn't it? Absolutely. Okay,
yeah.
Let's move on. So tip number 1, plan your evergreen content, but plan it around the rest of your content. How big a proportion of your overall content marketing strategy that will be will depend on the type of business and your audience and all the things we're going to come on to talk about. But it needs to be a component, not the whole thing, and not there. Okay, so tip number 2, focus on your core products or services, and focus on answering the key questions that your customers are always asking, and the questions that they're always going to be asking. Why this, Dalley? We've pretty much explained it already, but
I think I know I jump around all over the place, so you have to excuse me, but it's about understanding the pain points, and by those we mean the things that trigger a customer to know that, or a potential customer to know that we've got a problem, and then start that journey of either finding out what the solution to that problem is, or finding the product if they already roughly know what that product or service should be. But also not just pain points, but needs and wants as well. Also trigger people to start to engage with content and get funneled on the journey. Are we going to talk about buyer journey in a minute?
We are. Buyer journey is the next one, so I'm going to leave that. But yeah, essentially, I mean, whilst your business, obviously your business is going to change and evolve, and products that you offer, if, for example, might change and evolve. But those sorts of core questions that your customers are going to ask, or as you said, the core pain points that you are solving for for your customers, they're probably, they're not going to change. So you can have pieces of content such as, things about pricing and how to choose and when you need, and how long it will take, all of those sorts of key queries that people are going to have about your business. They're always going to be relevant. So focus on things like that for your evergreen content, the static stuff that doesn't really change. Okay, so tip number 1, plan your evergreen content around the rest of your calendar. Tip number 2, focus on the things that won't change, your core products and services, and answer the questions that your customers are always asking and will always be asking of you. Tip number 3, think about your buyer journey and the marketing funnel and where these pieces of evergreen content are going to fit into that. Why?
I mean, this ties into the previous question, really. If you understand the different stages of your buyer journey, which basically means when somebody recognizes that they want to buy something, how they make a decision about buying it, how they get to, how they actually buy it, and then later down, further along the funnel, you can talk about how you keep them loyal and how you get them to advocate for your product, for your brand and service. So it's all about understanding the things that tip them into getting content at different parts of that funnel. And we talk about the awareness phase, the consideration phase, decision phase, loyalty and advocacy. Those are the kind of the parts of the funnel that we tend to target. What I always talk about targeting the consideration phase, because the awareness phase, which is just when people are becoming aware that they've got a problem, often that is the thing that everybody writes about because it's almost the easy thing to write about. And that might be like, what is SEO, for example? But a consideration-based piece of content is more like how to choose an SEO agency in whatever it might be. It's a bit more granular. They already understand that they need an SEO agency because they've gone through the research phase beforehand, or they've got some understanding before that. And then during the consideration phase, they're trying to work out how to decide in the future what the things they're looking for in a certain kind of business. And then from there, they fall into the decision phase and they use what they've learned throughout the rest of the funnel in order to make a decision.
Yeah, and I mean, I always say this is the now what phase. So point number 2, when we were saying, focus on the pain points and things, that's the so what. So so you offer photography. So what does that mean to your client? What are you're gonna make sure they have photos for their blogs. You're gonna make sure they look good on their business card. All that stuff. That's the what are you gonna the so what. Now we're into the now what. Okay, so you've got their attention at this point. You've written a blog post about when they're going to need a photographer. Now what's the next question they're going to be asking? Now they're going to want to know, how much is it going to cost? How long is it going to take? How many people are we going to need? How long does it take till I get the photos back? So it's as people move down that buyer journey from you, as you say, that awareness consideration phase, as they're moving along from, okay, I know now I need a photographer. Now I know that there is a photographer and they can do all these things. How am I going to choose and decide that this is the right one? And then as you get further down that funnel, it's all the, well, why me over any other photographer type content, isn't it? So where does evergreen content fit into that? Yeah.
So you say so what and what was? Could you just run me through those again? So what at the top, and then now what?
And then now what?
Like that. Yeah, that's really good. It's a good way of remembering it. So what? Now what?
And then now what?
Right.
Yeah. Because again,
evergreen content.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
Well, I was just going to say, it's about, and we always say, don't we, Google knows what the next questions are going to be. Everybody has a buyer journey and they might jump around between that. But essentially, most people are going to follow the same sort of pattern of decision making. And if you don't have that all of that content on your website that answers all of those queries, they're going to go on someone else's website to get the answer, and then they're probably going to buy from them. So that's why it's so important to sort of map that out and spend a bit of time thinking about what you're going to need. And this is where the evergreen content shines, isn't it? Because it answers those key ones. Yeah.
On that point, the reason that I always say focus on the consideration phase content first is because there's so much awareness-based content that's often produced. You can just about let other people, other businesses, do that education for you first. Make sure that you've got your bank of consideration phase in place, because that's the stuff that really moves people along. And then once you're satisfied that you've got every piece of consideration phase content that you need to start doing more awareness phase. You were asking where it fits on the funnel, weren't you? And it fits everywhere. That's the long and short, that there's no specific place where that would fit. So, for example, you'll have all those. What is SEO? That's an example of an evergreen concept in the awareness phase. How to choose an SEO agency is a consideration phase content. Your case studies about your performance in the decision phase, and that's always relevant. That's always relevant content. So that's evergreen as well in some ways.
Because we're back to that. Your products, your services, whatever, they might change slightly, but as a business, those key questions, and even things like, people say, well, how much is it going to cost? My pricing might change. Well, then, we'll talk about, you can edit it afterwards. But fundamentally, those questions about how someone engages with your company and what service you provide to them, and then what happens as they move through your business, those are the things that don't really change, even if you put out a new special offer. So, they are relevant forever, aren't they?
We try not to put things like pricing in a piece of evergreen content anyway. That should be that's the service page. That's decision phase. You don't want to be confusing it by putting that further on it.
No, exactly. And I think the other thing that you were saying as well about how people move kind of through the funnel and get their questions answered. And this is back to what we were saying about, your evergreen content is that foundation piece. So if you do write a piece of content that's in the awareness phase of the funnel, you've got that evergreen content that you can then link to pull them through that funnel. So you've got what we call like that base of content that is the content that you're constantly linking back to, that does the heavy lifting for you. I do just want to say, because we need to move on, but if anyone is wanting to find out information about what stage of the funnel their keywords or their queries are at, SEMrush or SEMrush, just Google SEMrush, all one word. They now have a feature where they tell you, for the keywords that you either are or want to target, what stage of the funnel are those at? And they call it slightly different words because they've got the American one, but they give it you in a really nice bar graph, so you can see a percentage and say, 30% of your customers are generally in the consideration phase of the keywords, sorry. So you can start to use that information to plan, and it tells you what those keywords are. So you can say, these are the blog posts I need to write. So it really helps if you're planning your content calendar.
Yeah, I've been really impressed with the most recent updates to SEMrush. It's even the freemium version has some really valuable insights that you don't get anywhere else.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Okay.
Let's keep going.
Let's move on. So tip number 1, plan your evergreen content around the rest of your content in your content marketing calendar. Number 2, focus on your core product services, the key things that don't change, and the questions that your customers are always going to be asking of your business. Number 3, think about your buyer journey. Where does this content fit in? How are you going to use your evergreen content to pull people down through that buyer journey? Tip number 4, make sure your content's always going to be relevant. And this sounds like a really obvious thing, doesn't it? But quite often people fall into the trap of, especially if they write very sort of diary style or personal style blogs. If it's their business and they're a sole trader, people tend to write blogs in this way, don't they? And they fall into the trap of saying, oh, well, now it's in the run up to Easter, or seeing as we've got such lovely weather. And it's things that, actually they're very specific to that time. This content potentially could sit on your website for years. So try and make it as sort of as generic as universal as you possibly can, so that you're not, tying yourself in and making it obsolete in time.
Yeah, we've got an example actually at the moment of Easter's, because it's just been Easter, isn't it? So we have we have created Easter content for various of the businesses that we work for. Some of that will be relevant year after year, but some of the bigger brands that we work for are much more focused on creating branded content. It's much fluffier, much softer, much less about SEO, and we constantly have to push back against that. It's that understanding what the purpose of the content is and when it's going to be relevant, why you're building it.
And it's about understanding what your objectives are, aren't you? Because as you said before, having that sort of branded content that it is evergreen content, talks about why your brand is great and why people should buy into it and why they should love it. It's very evangelical and it's quite salesy. And there's absolutely a place for that. But if your key objective at this point is to get more customers or grow your traffic or improve your rankings or whatever, you probably don't need to be focusing on that at this stage, or you balance that in terms of your overall mix. So it is about, whereas if you get a lot of traffic and you're in more of a sort of maintenance mode, for want of a better phrase, then maybe the branded sort of content is what you need. So it's about thinking of what are you trying to achieve, what are your objectives, what stage are you at in terms of your marketing strategy, and that's going to help you balance it out, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah. Okay, marvelous. There we go. We agree on something. Moving on. Right. Point number 1. Plan your evergreen content around your content marketing calendar more generally. Number 2, focus on your core products and service and answer the questions your customers are always asking. Number 3, think about your buyer journey. Where does this content fit in and how is it going to assist that buyer to make that decision? Number 4, make sure your content is going to be relevant and in a year's time. It sounds really obvious, but people always forget to do it. And if you're not, just do a quick run through after you've written it, just to double check you've not made it time sensitive in any way. And tip number 5, final one, periodically review your content to keep it relevant. So what do we mean by this, Dalley?
This is something that we don't do for grow traffic, but I've always wanted to. So you might run a regular content audit where you list out all of your kind of pieces of content that are on your website. You would assign them a part, what's their objective, which part of the buyer journey do they sit in, what's the objective of that content, is there anything in that content that is price related, to your service, or discusses specific services. You might want to categorize that in that audit by specific services, and then you've got like a framework to go back through your content and say, actually, this one needs updating at certain points because we don't do that service anymore, or legislation's changed, so that blog will need rewriting, or that video will need to be refilmed or archived or something like that, whatever it will be. But yeah, constantly being aware that your content will eventually, at some point, probably go out of date, and even the best evergreen content will eventually go out of date, and it's a case of updating and keeping it relevant for as long as possible.
And that's fine, isn't it? I mean, this is a question that we get asked quite often. Is it better to remove a post entirely and write a new one? So say, you're answering the same question, but you've just updated it. Or is it better to just change the date on it and put a little paragraph that says originally published in 2017, updated for 2022? Which one of those is SEO best practice?
As with anything, it depends, because
ding 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 ding.
Exactly, it will depend on. I mean, in theory, the page with the most history should have page kind of authority or trust or rank associated with that, which will therefore mean that you want to keep the old URL. However, Google has been removing de-indexing URLs from all pieces of content. It's trying to reduce the amount of capacity that all that content uses, and therefore it will just depend if it still ranks, if it ranks well, if it's working in terms, and there's just something on that page that's irrelevant, then you might say to yourself, well, I'll just update that. If you're talking about a piece of content that doesn't rank well, it has no history, it's limited page authority or whatever metric you use, then you might say to yourself, well, actually, maybe it's time to create a piece of fresh content and see if we can, go after that rank.
Mm. Okay. And the other thing I just want to say, you mentioned content audits there, and obviously they can be a massive piece of work depending on how many
Huge.
blogs you've got and how long you go back and all the rest of it. So what I would say is if if you have the forethought, even if you start now, you don't need to go back and do it, but keep a log on a daily basis. If you're doing a content calendar, whether you're doing that in Word or a spreadsheet or you're using one of our templates, it doesn't matter, but that will help you with your content audit. When you're scheduling or putting in your titles that you're going to write, just put a little note next to them that says this is an informational piece, or this is for whichever phase of the marketing funnel, or make a note of when you think that's going to need a review and use your task management system or CRM or whatever you use, or set a reminder on your calendar just to remind yourself that in a year's time you probably need to go and review that post and just update it. So basically what I'm saying is, with a little bit of forethought and just marking out your posts as you go, as you're updating them, as you're uploading them, it means you haven't then got that massive, because the reason that we haven't done our content audit, Dalley, and reviewed all our posts is because we've got 14 years of blog posts, and for the last kind of year or so at least, we've been publishing 3 posts a week, haven't we? So there is a lot of content to go through.
Yeah, when I first said, it was many years ago when I first said we need to do a content audit, and I started, but we're talking about, at that point, we're talking about 400 posts, I think, something like that. And I mean, now you say we're doing 3 posts a week. Actually, we're doing more like 3 a day.
Yeah,
At the moment.
yeah.
So
we've got
Honor,
the blog writing machine is just
she's a
bashing them out,
machine,
isn't
yes.
she? She's doing amazing.
She's good
Yeah,
at it.
so I
It's
think
great.
that's the thing though. But basically, don't be afraid. As we always say, anything that you put online is always editable. So if all you need to do is go and change a little thing that just makes it relevant, maybe there's been a little regulation change or a small change to your servicing, or as we said, your pricing, how you work, whatever it might be, you can go and edit that after, whether or not you just make a note and say edited in whatever date, or you change the date, or you take it down altogether and rewrite it. It's going to depend on how well it's doing, how important it is to the rest of your website. So that's where Google Analytics is going to become your friend, because you'll be able to see how well is that page doing. And if it's doing well, just update it. But basically, so there we go. That's our top 5 tips, Simon Dalley. And I'm going to come to you for your final thought in a minute. So I haven't been thinking about that. So number 1, plan your evergreen content around the rest of your content marketing strategy. Number 2, focus on the core products and services, the things in your business that don't change, and ask and answer the questions that your customers are always going to be asking about your business. Number 3, think about your buyer journey. Where does this piece of content fit into that buyer journey? Where's it going to fit into your marketing funnel? Where's it going to fit into your marketing strategy? So just be aware of what position it's holding and how it's going to help pull people through. Number 4, make sure that content will still be relevant. So don't mention key things or the current day or the weather or what, just make sure it is evergreen. And number 5, periodically review it. And by periodically, it might be every 5 years, it just needs a check over. It might be every year it's going to need updating, but just keep an eye on it. And if you can keep a log as you go, it will make your life so much easier. So Simon Dalley, final thought or final tip for people that are thinking about creating evergreen content.
Come up with a plan, and because if you don't have a plan, it's very unlikely that you will it's very likely that if you don't have a plan, you'll start creating more of that kind of branding content. You'll start doing newsjacking pieces because you're just groping around trying to figure out what to do. If you've got a plan in place, then it's something that you can focus on and get done.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really good tip, isn't it? And that comes back to really sort of scheduling that content calendar. And my tip would be, this is not a blatant plug, but if you do need help, because quite a lot of businesses, they're perfectly capable of writing the content. They're the ones in the business who know the most about it. But understanding what to be writing and what titles to be writing and all the rest of it, that's where you perhaps need a little bit of help. So free tools, SEMrush, Answer the Public, all of these things, but just putting your queries into Google, looking at the people also asked boxes, all of these will give you pointers. But
What
if you do
shameless
all,
as well.
no, hang on, I've not finished talking yet. But if you do need a bit of help with the strategy, Grow Traffic can help. So
But not
reach
just
out.
with the strategy. We'll do the writing. We'll do it all.
Oh, we can do that. We can do that. Absolutely. Of
We
course we
will
can.
do.
Yeah. Right. There we go. Thank you very much. So thank you. If you have been watching this live, thank you so much. Thank you for those that have commented. If you are watching it on YouTube, please, you may also still comment. We'll still see them. We'll still answer you. And if you're listening to this on podcast, please give us a like and a review and share it if you possibly can, because it helps. That's it. Simon Dalley, it's officially the weekend.
It is indeed. Thank you very much, Rachel. That was good. You were good.
Thank you. So you were amazing.
I know. I was here, wasn't I?
Of course. See you next time. Bye.